We are in semi-interesting Nebraska today. One of the most beautiful places in Nebraska. This is Fort Robinson State Park. Very beautiful. The topic here today is called Recalibrating Natural Healthcare for the End Times. So the question could reasonably, of course, be asked, why must this be calibrated? 3 reasons. Number 1, it needs to be recalibrated because diseases are now coming with such power and intensity that mankind can no longer afford to neglect the incredible healing power that God has embedded into nature. It's time to bring out the big guns, the very things that we have that has been ignored for so long. Number 2 reason for recalibrating is it needs to be recalibrated so that its practices and functionally sustainable, let me say that one more time. It needs to be recalibrated so that its practices are functionally sustainable. By the way, the concern for end-time Christian medical missionaries is not how long we can continue to use man-made medical therapy devices. It's about how quickly we can learn how to treat the sick effectively without any of them. It needs to be recalibrated because it is now impossible for traditional status quo natural health care to keep up with the escalating, relentless bombardment of satanic global poisoning without a significant paradigm shift. So, what would a recalibrated end-time natural health care look like? Number 1, it would look sustainable. God's end-time healthcare system must be available to everyone without price. That's why God mercifully embedded it into nature. It must be simple and easy that anyone can use it. That's why our loving God made it automatic. Its healing principles must not be grievous. This is a quote from Ellen White. God's remedies are the simple agencies of nature that will not tax or debilitate the system through their powerful properties. Pure air and water, cleanliness, a proper diet, purity of life, and a firm trust in God are remedies for the want of which thousands are dying. Now, let me back up here. See that first sentence there? God's remedies are simple agencies of nature. That's what's been neglected. We human beings, we tend to want to do our therapies, our man-made treatments and therapies. There's nothing wrong with that, but if they are placed above the simple agencies of nature, sunlight, exercise, water, temperance, air, rest, trust in God, then we're out of balance. And that's all we're going to have in these end times. So it's coming. It's inevitable. Next quote, pure air, sunlight, abstemiousness, rest, exercise, proper diet, the use of water, trust in divine power. That should not have been last. That should have been first. These are the true remedies. None of these things are grievous. There are many more that could be mentioned. Second reason, a recalibrated end-time healthcare would not be dependent on drug-based hospitals for anything. That's a massive paradigm shift. We'll get into that. Now, there's 2 reasons for not depending on the hospitals for anything. Number 1, the world's drug-based hospitals and medical philosophies are not in harmony with God's natural law. We know that. Reason number 2 is a little bit more serious. In the last great conflict of controversy with Satan, those who are loyal to God will see every earthly support cut off because they refuse to break his law in obedience to earthly powers. They will be forbidden to buy and sell. And we're hearing from the signs of the times that let me back that up, that is sooner than later. End-time natural law healthcare must be fully self-contained, all-encompassing. In order to be fully self-contained, it must make up for lack of access to doctors and hospitals, which includes emergency services, surgeries, deliveries, pain meds, equipment, insulin, everything, as the world turns into chaos. If we lose access to hospitals and services, we make up for it by a determined partnership with God. Fortunately, God offers us that partnership. He says, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and wilt do that which is right in his sight, not ours, and wilt give ear to his commandments and keep all his statutes, including the health statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. In other words, you keep my promises, I will keep you healthy. This seems to be the key to surviving genocidal poisoning of mankind. That promise. This broad Bible promise does not say, well, I will keep you healthy unless Satan starts poisoning the earth and your bodies, then there's nothing I can do about it. That promise is forever. We humans tend to emphasize a specific natural remedy for a specific disease. God emphasizes keeping his statutes. So let's go to our very first real-life example of an end-time health partnership with God. This is taken from the book Over and Over Again, 1998, page 68. It's a short little story. The story is entitled God's Medical Plan by John A. Symes, Sr. With mixed emotions, this is an Adventist book, by the way. With mixed emotions, we, a family of 6, came home to the United States on permanent return from mission service. We had enjoyed 6 exciting years as missionaries in Libya, Cyprus, and Tanzania. As we settled happily into our new environment in Collegedale, Tennessee, I started my dental practice. We had to choose some type of medical insurance program for the family. In checking with several insurance companies, we found that our average monthly premium would be about $400, and that was a long time ago. After much prayer together with studying God's Word and the Spirit of prophecy, we chose to do something a little different. Now it gets interesting. We made a covenant with the Lord. We decided to put $400 a month into a special savings account that would be used only when one of us needed medical treatment. I told you it's getting interesting. It took some faith to do this. We had to take into consideration that our 3rd child, Nancy, had contracted malaria and hepatitis 6 months before leaving Africa. She was still weak and limited in her physical activities. Jack, our 4th child, had bouts with tonsillitis. Nevertheless, our part of the covenant was that we would practice all God's health laws regarding good nutrition, daily exercise, adequate water, sunshine, temperance, fresh air, rest, and a trusting relationship with God. We would wear our seatbelts too. God's part of the covenant was that he would bless us and protect us from catastrophic illness. In 4 years, our health fund contained a sizable amount of money. We chose to invest that money into building a duplex for rent. 4 years later, we again invested the monies in our medical savings into building a second duplex. This continued until we had 4 duplexes, a total of 8 rental units. The rental properties gave us another source of income and a helpful tax advantage. 4 years ago, with our children grown and married, with their own families, we sold our duplexes after operating them as a side business for 16 years. Our net profit was approximately $150,000, which was available to be used in the Lord's service. The total of all our medical bills in more than 20 years for our family of 6 was less than $5,000. Now that is a partnership with God. This is what I'm advocating throughout this whole presentation, that kind of partnership. And I'm going to give it other examples of this partnership throughout here. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel. Them that honor me, I will honor. Strict adherence to God's health laws is not just about health and healing. Daniel and his 3 companions honored God publicly by their strict adherence to the health statutes, even at the risk of death, and it was a real risk. And God honored them by making them the healthiest, wisest, and most honored men in all of Babylon. God honors obedience and faith. That's why it's important that we use what He specifies if we expect healing and honor and miracles of God. Again, strict adherence to God's natural law isn't just about health and healing. Sometimes God uses illness as a way to save us by bringing us to repentance and surrender. It did for me. These are necessary preparations for God's healing interventions. Will we trust God in times of illness? Will we use what God has specified? Now, the next little story is mine. It describes what happened when I surrendered to God. After my gallbladder surgery, I was sick for 1.5 years, and I didn't know why. And I kept getting more and more and more serious symptoms. I thought I was going to die. One of those symptoms was a long-term, continuous, sharp pain in my back on both sides, low. My doctor told me that was adrenal fatigue from constant fear and anxiety from all those mysterious health conditions. Things had gotten so bad that my wife and I knelt down to pray together. Now, we had done that many times before, but this time I did something different. I completely surrendered myself to God unto death. The results be what they may. And I was crying when I made that decision. I did not want to do that. I didn't feel anything but fear and sinfulness either before or after that prayer. When I got up from prayer, I realized that the long-term adrenal pain had been healed. It was the surrender to God unto death that moved the hand of the Lord to heal. This is the foundation of healing. He says, I am the Lord that healeth you. Now, just so you know, after the surgery, I was already eating exceedingly healthfully according to natural law, but that alone did not trigger the miraculous healing from God. I had to surrender to death, and I thought I was going to die. So one way or the other, true healing has always been a spiritual matter. It always involves God. And then there's Job. Job's illness and suffering was a witness to the entire universe. Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. Job was honored magnificently. Now, if Job can get to that point, we can. And I believe we're going to have to. Eventually, one or another, it's going to come down to it. Sometimes God uses illness as an opportunity to show himself strong to our family, friends, and our sphere of influence. Like the story of Hezekiah's illness, where God moved the sun backwards 10 degrees as proof that Hezekiah was healed. It attracted nations. So the last thing we want to do is to allow our illness to cause us to fret and worry ourselves out of the hand of God. King Ahaziah did that, and it cost him his life. We stayed true to his health statutes, though he slay us. We do not want to rob God of his glory. Now, can we expect a miracle of healing if we trust in man rather than God? The Lord will not work a miracle to restore to soundness those who continue to use drugs which so degrade soul, mind, and body that sacred things are not appreciated. Just being tired. I was this morning, how in the world am I going to do anything for God? God has given us many warnings against pharmakeia. Do those warnings not apply when it comes to pain meds? What about pain meds? Has God left us in the hands of the merchants of pharmakeia when it comes to severe pain? Is his arm shortened that he cannot save? What if we are not as bound to pain meds as has been supposed? The following story is an example of one such alternative, my favorite alternative. This is a real story from the Battle Creek Sanitarium. This is an excerpt from a letter to Ellen White from Dr. D.H. Kress and A.G. Daniels. July 19, 1903, Wahroonga, New South Wales, Australia. It's Dr. Kress who is about to speak. He says, "When I first connected with the Battle Creek Sanitarium, I passed through a very severe experience. Those doctors who were there before Drs. Rand, Dr. Paulson, and I arrived all administered drugs. Consequently, the patients who came expected drugs, and we had to face them. Sometimes our feet well nigh slipped, but by God's grace, I was kept. Many a time, get that, many a time, I have taken up the hypodermic syringe for the purpose of relieving pain and would then kneel down, put the drug to one side, and plead with God for the patient, and help would come. I have seen miracles wrought in this way that have given me confidence in the plan outlined in the testimonies for the treatment of disease. The time came when a different class of patients came to our sanitarium. Those who were healed without drugs went home and told their friends and acquaintances, and they came and would have been disappointed should drugs have been administered. This is why we never compromise. This is why we no longer compromise with truth either. That's what this whole thing is about, restoring Adventism. Them that honor me, I will honor." Now, when it comes to a direct, miraculous healing from God, the rules of the game become a bit more stringent. To ask God for a miracle tends to require that we afflict our souls before God. We must ask ourselves some really basic questions. Am I right with God? Have I confessed every known sin? Am I right with my brethren? Am I holding any grudges? Have I forgiven those that have hurt me? Oh, that's a hard one. We're humans. We don't like that. Have I surrendered to God's will unto death? Have I rejected light or counsels from God? Is there anything that has come between me and God? Fortunately, this soul affliction is exactly what we are supposed to be doing anyway in this anti-typical day of atonement right now, these last hours of our probation. We should already be doing that. I suspect that a life lived like this will enable many miracles. This is end-time healthcare. If we want to avoid the world's hospitals in such a time as this This is a significant part of how we do it. All right, now, God's replacement for surgery. This is a testimony from Angela Christian. I've been talking with her online. She was on a blog called Med Missionary in March 1, 2024. She says, when I was a child, I witnessed my mom being miraculously healed through prayer just minutes before surgery. The best part was that she had been telling the doctors that the Lord was going to intervene, and he absolutely did. It turned out to be a wonderful testimony for the doctors and hospital staff that day. Her doctor had to admit that he had witnessed a miracle. My mama came home feeling great and grinning from ear to ear. Even surgery, folks. We are not going to be able to hold on to that green cord without this level of faith and experience first. God is leading us back to the better way as the world is spinning out of control. We are to be his witnesses for his glory. The next few slides describe the balance to be had in an end-time health partnership with God and how to avoid presumption. This is from Ellen White. And by the way, that picture you see there is a real picture. It's not AI. When these nurses start their shift with sincere and public prayer, professing faith in God that he will intervene, why then, for the next 8 hours, do they not just sit back and watch God work for him and let him intervene? Why don't they just ask God for miracles of healing? The next slides will begin to answer that. These are real patients that I'm about to show to. I'm not going to talk about them. They're just pictures. That's real. All right. God's miracles do not always bear the outward semblance of miracles. This is Ellen White talking. Often they are brought about in a way which looks like the natural course of events. When we pray for the sick, we also work for them. We answer our own prayers by using the remedies within our reach. Water, wisely applied, is a most powerful remedy. A most powerful remedy, not the most powerful. As it is used intelligently, favorable results are seen. God has given us intelligence, and he desires us to make the most of his health-giving blessings. We ask that God will give bread to the hungry. We are then to act as his helping hand in relieving hunger. We are to use every blessing, and here's a key. This is really pivotal. We are to use every blessing God has placed within our reach for the deliverance of those in danger. That is a real principle, huge. Sometimes we just need to ask God what is within our reach that he wants us to use. Natural means used in accordance with God's will bring about supernatural results. We ask for a miracle, and the Lord directs the mind to some simple remedy, a simple remedy. We ask to be kept from the pestilence that walketh in darkness, that is stalking with such power through the world. Wow, isn't that 2020? We are then to cooperate with God, observing the laws of health and light. Could it really be that simple? It must be that simple, because there's no way we are getting through this relentless bombardment of poisons in these end times without a strong, persevering partnership with God. That's the foundation of the paradigm shift. All right, continuing on with Ellen White's quote. Having done all that we possibly can, that's a principle, we are to keep asking in faith for health and strength. We are to eat that food which will preserve the health of the body. Here's the next principle. God gives us no encouragement that he will do for us what we can do for ourselves. Natural laws are to be obeyed. We are not to fail of doing our part. We cannot disregard the laws of nature without disregarding the laws of God. Drugs mess with the natural order of things. We were told that we are to assist nature in her efforts to expel impurities, not inject them directly into our bodies. We cannot expect the Lord to work a miracle for us while we neglect the simple remedies he has provided for our use, which, aptly and opportunely applied, will bring about a miraculous result. The Lord has given me light that when the Israel of today humble themselves before him and cleanse the soul temple from all defilement, he will hear their prayers in behalf of the sick and will bless in the use of his remedies of disease. So that's interesting. God just revealed his algorithm for answering prayers for the sick. When in faith, the human agent does all he can to combat disease using the simple methods of treatment that God has provided, his efforts will be blessed of God. All right, that's the end of that quote. Let's talk about blind Bartimaeus here, shall we? He was cured by clay mixed with spittle and placed on his eyes. Yet we know very good and well that clay mixed with spittle does not cure the world of blindness. It's not about the clay. It's not about our treatments. God does not require nature's agencies to heal us, but we use them because he has told us to. Using them is an act of obedience and public evidence of our faith, our works, which opens the way for God to provide supernatural results. Whatever natural remedies he has placed within your reach, he will bless if you present it to him in faith. But we have to ask what is within our reach. God's healing provisions are not limited to the basic 8. His provisions for us are not limited to what we think we already know. The following is a simple, real-world example from my own experience of God blessing a weak natural remedy because it was used in faith for his glory. When I was working as a respiratory therapist at a long-term acute care facility near Berrien Springs, I walked into a patient's room to give her meds. A nurse was holding the patient's bloody nose with packing. This had been going on for quite some time. The patient was on blood thinners, which made matters much, much worse, as you can imagine. So I found the doctor, an Adventist, and asked if we could try a natural remedy on the patient. She immediately physically recoiled and muttered under her breath with disdain, "Natural remedies." So I described what I had in mind and reassured her that this was just basic physiology 101, divert the blood from one place to another. So this is what I did. The doctor had already contacted the ER at the main hospital 20 miles away and was preparing to call an ambulance to move the patient there because the nosebleed would not stop. But the doctor finally reluctantly agreed to let me try before she called the ambulance. So this is what I did. I quietly prayed and placed an ice bag on the back of her neck and her feet in hot water. In less than 2 minutes, the nosebleed stopped. But here's the rub. She could only tolerate tepid water, and tepid water is not going to do anything. It was ineffective. So I simply claimed the promise that God would give his natural remedy supernatural results. And he did. This is why we pray before every application of natural remedies, acknowledging him as our healer and protector, not the remedy itself. This is a very interesting quote from Patriarchs and Prophets, page 554. The most complete system that men have ever devised, apart from the power and wisdom of God, will prove a failure, while the most unpromising methods will succeed when divinely appointed, and entered upon with humility and faith. Are God's divinely appointed methods powerful enough to prevail against the escalating satanic, genocidal, global poisoning of mankind? Yes. The following micro stories are proof that the simple things of nature can indeed prevail against the genocidal poisoning if the methods are divinely appointed and entered upon with humility and faith. There are so many more stories that could be told, but these were at hand. Number one, Parkinson's induced forward neck drop. You see the before and after there? His neck was straightened in 21 days in the sunlight. Here's a tiny little story. On September 2024, a 21-day tour of the national parks. He was fully clothed, in a wheelchair, no exercise. His son did much of the driving at night so that Larry, that's the guy, from early morning till after sunset could be in the fresh air, sunlight, and the healing beauty of nature. Yes, the beauty of nature is actually physically healing, says Ellen White. All this guy had to do was show up. This is being presented here because Parkinson's is a disease of toxicity, accumulated poisons. Another one on Parkinson's, different person. I worked with Dr. Jeffrey Gates at the Battle Creek Lifestyle Health Center when it existed. He had a seminar, a health lecture in Battle Creek there about 24 years ago. He told of his uncle who had Parkinson's disease, advanced. Dr. Gates placed him on a simple water fast for 2 weeks, by which time most of his symptoms were gone. Gates then paused the fast to rebuild his uncle's strength. They resumed a bit later for a short time in which his uncle fully recovered. Again, Parkinson's is a disease of accumulated poisons and toxins. Number 3, this is my favorite story here. The following story is from the book by Paul Bragg, naturopathic doctor, PhD, called The Miracle of Fasting. You recognize this guy, Bragg? Bragg's Liquid Aminos? This is the guy, this is the family. This is the 50th edition, page 76 and 77. It is by far my favorite fasting story. Here he is. Remember that as long as there is any toxic waste in your circulation, you may feel some discomfort during your fast. But as soon as the vital force flushes these poisons out through your kidneys, you will start to feel better. Wait a minute, I just recognized something I hadn't seen before. As soon as the vital force flushes these poisons out, he's saying that the body can do this automatically. Yet we have to try really, really hard to take out mercury. He's about to say it's being done by the vital force. All right, let's continue on. Many times during a fast, old drugs that have been buried in your system for years are loosened up and flushed out of the body. Let me tell you one of my greatest experiences when I first started fasting. Now let's go back to my early childhood diet. I was born and reared in Virginia, and I was fed a typically greasy, starchy, fatty, and sugary diet. My body was so filled with toxins as a child that I had every known childhood disease. Mumps, measles, whooping cough. You name them, I had them. Along with these childhood miseries, I was given large amounts of a drug known as calomel. And this drug was filled with quicksilver, mercury. After I was restored to a good state of health at Dr. Augusta Rollier's sanitarium in Leysen, Switzerland, I started my regular fasting program, which I am proud to say I have continued through all these wonderful years since then. I fasted one 24-hour period weekly. And 4 times a year at 3 months intervals, I fasted from 7 to 10 days. always on a distilled water fast. After I had been on this fasting program for 5 years, it was during one of my 10-day fasts that a great miracle happened to me. I was at my family's old homestead in Virginia. On about the 7th day of a 10-day fast, I was out in a canoe on the river, leisurely enjoying the sunshine and fresh air, when suddenly, without warning, I doubled up with stomach cramps. I thought I would never be able to stand the pain. With great effort, I got ashore, and then it happened. I had a terrific bowel evacuation. At the end of this evacuation, I felt a heavy, cool sensation in my rectum and out past a 1/3 cup of the quicksilver from the toxic calomel that I took in my childhood. That experience marked a new day in my entire physical structure. From that day on, I knew what superior health meant. My vital force was increased so greatly with my program of eating natural living foods, fasting, sunshine, and exercise that all my body cells rejoiced with my new energy power. When fasting, I eliminated the drugs that were given to me in my youth. Now that is a story with teeth. Now here's the application to us. What if? I love what ifs. What if God has already specified the counteragents to the weapons formed against us in this global genocidal poisoning of mankind? He knew it was coming. What if the cure is not some new, complicated, mysterious, semi-pharmaceutical set of potions or even some new natural remedy, but simply implementing all the light God has already given us, like Paul Bragg just demonstrated. Mercury is one of the deadliest toxins on planet Earth and notoriously difficult to defeat and expel. Yet Mr. Bragg just conclusively proved that God has given the body the ability to naturally eject even mercury, automatically, simply by fasting and a life lived in harmony with the Bible and Eden health principles. This is where we're going with an end-time healthcare. So it's not really about what we can do. It's about what God can do when we partner with him. Number fourth story, there's 5 stories, and then we're done. This is from Kimberly Dinsley at Charcoal House here in Nebraska. All those issues that you're looking at here were resolved by daily charcoal slurries for 13 weeks. Most of these well before 13 weeks. Mercury poisoning. Serious memory loss, brain fog. She was accused of having Parkinson's disease. Chronic candida infection, yeast infection, antibiotic side effects, low energy, parasites, and even liver spots started going away, fading. Now this story is detailed. The protocol is simple. The results were spectacular. 5th story, snake venom. Now this is relevant to us. And when Paul had gathered a bundle of sticks and laid them on the fire, there came a viper out of the heat and fastened on his hand. And when the barbarians saw the venomous beast hang on his hand, they said among themselves, "No doubt this man is a murderer, whom, though he hath escaped the sea, yet vengeance suffereth not to live." And he shook off the beast into the fire and felt no harm. Howbeit they looked when he should have swollen or fallen down dead suddenly. But after they had looked a great while and saw no harm come to him, they changed their minds and said that he was a god. Again, God sometimes allows such health crises that he may show himself strong to the world. "Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. They shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover. These promises are essential in such a time as this. This Bible promise in Luke 10:19 sounds like Jesus had our generation in mind when he made it. God is showing us that through him, it is possible to sever our dependency on the world as we become 100% dependent on him as the world falls apart. It's inevitable one way or another. So once again, I ask the question, what would a properly calibrated end-time natural health care look like? It would look like the original, authentic Adventist health message that was once delivered unto the saints, for which we must now earnestly contend. Thus saith the Lord, stand ye in the ways and see, and ask for the old paths, where is the good way? And walk therein, and ye shall find rest for your souls. Natural health care would have expelled man's medical philosophies and traditions in favor of a clear, thus saith the Lord. It would emphasize what God emphasizes for our health and healing nature, not what man likes to emphasize. It will fully embrace obedience to God's natural law, affliction of our souls, intercessory prayer, Bible promises, and miracles. These are indispensable for end-time gospel medical missionary work. So, final question here. Where can you find this restored natural health care? Just take a ride on the old paths. You will find it securely fastened to the restored, authentic, original gospel that was also once delivered unto the saints.